couple years ago, Mitch, we did a video showing how you could make a mini comic out of a single sheet of paper.
People really seem to like that video.
The job's not done.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're right. People like that video, but we still get questions.
Yeah.
The devil's in the details, Michelle. So we're going to try to answer some of the most asked questions from that video.
Oh, good.
Get a lot of comments. This comment, though, that's my favorite. This person knows where it's at.
Of course. Let's get to the first question.
All right. What size paper do I use?
Okay, well, most standard paper sizes work. We tried it with 11 by 17, 8.5 by 11.
Yeah, and we get questions about the A4 size.
Right.
That works. And if you're working with construction paper, that works. And I even tried it with a tiny 4x6 note card.
Yeah.
Rectangular paper works best. Any rectangular paper.
And just as a quick recap, the easiest way to set up your pages is to fold your paper in half 3 times.
Yeah, and fold it widthwise each time. And make sure those creases are nice and crisp.
And when you unfold it, you have your 8-page setup. You just got to cut the center 2 folds along the crease.
And be safe about it. If you're a kid, or if you're me, maybe get a grown-up to help you with this part.
The trickiest part is folding it back up again. You fold it along the long crease, then kind of push it together so those sections you cut fold out in opposite directions.
Yeah, and at this stage, it should be clear what's happening here. Just make sure that those creases are nice and sharp, and then you fold the whole thing up into a book.
So now you should have 8 pages where you can draw your comics.
Now we're going to quickly show you that it works the exact same way with larger or smaller sheets of paper. Keep in mind though, this is a great way to do one single comic or to set up your paper so that you can visualize those 8 pages. But if you're going to make more than one copy, if you're going to run this thing through a copy machine to make a bunch, I would use the folded paper as a layout. Draw my roughs on that paper and then trace it, lightbox it, and draw the final comic on a flat piece of paper.
Yeah.
The copies will come out looking better, and you can do all the folding and cutting after you make your 3,000 copies.
Good idea.
So here's what they all look like with the different paper sizes, and they're all perfectly serviceable.
I think the 11 by 17 is a great size for this.
There's a lot of real estate there.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. Can I add more pages?
Of course you can, Michelle, but it's no longer going to be a simple cut and fold job at that point.
Right.
What you'll need to do is to create 2 comics the way that we've shown you, nest one in the center of the other, and then staple the 2 together. And that'll give you twice as many pages.
Right.
But honestly, if you're going to use a stapler, you could fold just about any paper and staple it together to make a book.
Yeah.
But we are concentrating on the single sheet, no staple booklet for the ease of use. I'll throw in a tip though about the staplers.
Okay.
If you're going to staple things, make sure that the pokey parts of the staple are inside the booklet.
Yes.
Otherwise, you will run the risk of those staples snagging clothing or skin every time you pick it up.
Yes. In our original video, we told you how to set up your art and story, starting at the bottom right and then circling up and around counterclockwise. And that keeps everything in order when you fold it.
But, addressing the new issue of adding pages, the pattern is a little less intuitive and, honestly, a little wacky.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind when you're planning out your narrative.
Yeah, that really jumps around. Hey,
Yeah.
how do I set up the grid on my app?
Well, that is a very good question.
Thank you.
Some people like to make their comics digitally. So let's start with Procreate.
Okay.
I don't often use Procreate, you know that, so this is the easiest, quickest way that I figured out how to do this. You just open up a document, and I'm going to use an 8.5 by 11 inch canvas, 300 DPI since it's going to print. Of course, you can use any size paper.
Right.
But the idea is to separate your canvas into 4 even columns and 2 even rows. To do that, I go to the Actions menu, and under Canvas, I turn on Drawing Guide to get to the grid, then click Edit Drawing Guide. For this size canvas, I know the columns are 2 3/4 inches wide, so I switch the grid size to inches and the measurement to 2.75. This puts a grid line on screen everywhere I need one, but if I want to draw them in to make it more clear, I can open up a layer, turn on Drawing Assist so the brush snaps to the grid, and drag lines down and across to make my 4 columns and 2 rows. After that, I can open up a new layer to draw my comic, and when it's time to go to print, I just hide the layer that has the grid lines.
And if they want to use a different size paper, the grid measurement will be different.
Exactly. And, they're going to have to figure out the math for whatever paper size they use.
Right.
Since I'm a lousy math teacher, and I've already given myself a headache just setting up this grid.
Right.
Luckily, though, with Clip Studio Paint, You don't even need math.
Good.
Just open up a new landscape document. Click on the Frame Border tool, then click on Rectangular Frame, and drag it over the entire canvas. Select the frame in the Layers palette, then go to the Layer menu, slide down to Ruler Frame, and click Divide Frame Border Equally. A little window opens up where you type in 2 vertical divisions, those are your rows, and 4 horizontal divisions, those are your columns. Then click OK and boom! Clip Studio drops your 8-page grid on a layer. You can just go into that folder on another layer and start drawing your comic.
Nice. Oh, what is this?
It's an example comic.
My face? Is that how you see me?
I'm permitted some artistic license.
Why am I so hideous?
Genetics?
Oh my God.
I'm kidding. I'm just joking. Anyway, just about every app I've worked in has a way to lay down guidelines for your 8-page grid. In Affinity Photo and Affinity Designer, you just click View Guides and set the number of divisions. No math needed.
Good.
In Adobe Illustrator, it involves dragging out guidelines and using the distribution panel to align them evenly across the page. Again, no math. And I don't have Photoshop, but I'm assuming it works similarly to other Adobe products. If you have a Photoshop tip for this function, feel free to leave it in the comments. Basically, the idea is to create an 8-page grid so that you can keep your art and lettering in the right place, and then you hide that grid before you go to print. Before we look at the comic I made, let's just answer a few of the other questions that we've gotten.
There were a couple of questions about cutting the folds of the paper to make more pages.
Right? Because that feels like it would work.
It feels like it would work.
Yeah.
But if you cut the top and end folds of the pages, the whole foundation of the book, the whole structure just kind of falls apart.
Right. So if you need more pages, just nest 2 booklets together and staple them.
We also had questions about making the creases nice and sharp.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't remember if we mentioned it in the first video, but we sometimes use one of these bone folders to score a line and then burnish the fold.
Is ready.
Yeah, they do work wonders.
Yes.
I hope that we've answered all the questions that we've gotten.
We tried.
I know this is covered by a lot of people online, so if we didn't have your answer, I'm sure someone out there will.
Oh, yeah.
Despite the time crunch, I did manage to crank out a quick, goofy comic about the potentially inappropriate use of public domain characters, all inspired by the madness that Steamboat Willie recently begat.
Yes.
And we tried to class it up a little by having our friend, voice actor Owen McCuen, lend his talents to the audio.
Owen's always a good sport.
He is.
We'll put his details down in the info.
All right, let's look at this silly thing.
Oh, hello there. Public Domain Support Group 24 is now in session. The restroom's up the stairs, Frankenstein. Oh, just Frank now? All right. Welcome, everyone. This is a safe space. Oh, please, no smoking, Sherlock. We've been over this.
Confound it. Well, all right.
You're new here, Mickey. There's coffee.
What'd you call me, Tubby?
Oh, I'm sorry.
The name's Felix, the cat, and I ain't no rat. I ought to reach into my bag of tricks and pull out a giant can of whooping.
Oh, boy.
Oh, I say.
Bob, he didn't mean anything by it, friend. Fellas, we shouldn't fight amongst ourselves. These new hack writers are to blame. All they ever think to do is to write us into horror stories. Or worse.
This is quite true.
The things they've made me do. We just have to rise above the violence.
Must maintain our composure. You all knows what I am, and how I earns me living. Ooh, next year that cuts me loose. Whoa, and I'm looking forward to a little violence.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's another Reuben. If this video didn't answer all of your questions, maybe check back with part 1.
And sometimes it takes a few tries to get it right.
Of course.
So keep trying.
Yes.
Why do I let you do this all the time? Why must you? Well,
I don't know.
Actually, some of these are pretty complimentary.
See, this is what I'm saying.
You really captured my giant monster teeth and my 9-inch nose.
It must
very nice.
be like looking in a mirror.
Oh, geez. Yes, it is.